And I believe we are live. Welcome everyone to ThinkYoung's webinar entitled Our Feed, Our Future, How Can Social Media Improve Youth Mental Wellbeing? Our Feed, Our Future is a ThinkYoung and Meta collaboration. It's a campaign we started this summer, and it will go on with a series of events and webinars and online activities until next spring. The idea is to bring together activists, young people, influencer, creator, but also policymakers, decision makers, and anyone interested in improving the social media experience of young people. Nowadays, social media, as you know, is undoubtedly a key part of our life. It's a tool for connecting. It's a tool for staying in touch with our friends. It's also a tool to learn new things. And it's a tool to enjoy also some creative and interesting content. However, the time we spend on online platform is also being affecting our way of perceiving reality and ourselves. So it is important that sometimes we do have a check on how this has an impact on our mental well-being and mental health. This is why we're providing a space for discussing this, and we're doing it today. We are joined by three at the moment. We are waiting for a fourth one. Very important speakers who can really add value to the conversation. We start with Mrs. Verónica Donoso, who's a researcher at the Institute for Media Studies at the KU Leuven University, and an independent consultant specialized in digital literacy. Dr. Radha Modgil, who is an NHS general practitioner, television and radio and podcast broadcasters. You might have seen her on the BBC and other media outlet. And Molly Hickey, he's an activist who focuses on online safety. We will be joined later by the member of the European Parliament, Radka Maxová, who is currently finishing another conference, and then she will join. We are ready to begin our webinar. For the people listening to us, we would like to say that you can, in the comment of the platform where you're looking at this webinar, you can pose your question, you can ask us anything, and at the end of the webinar, we will have a good 15-20 minutes for a question and answer. So start writing your question on the platform, and then our team will put your question forward. As in all, and that's MEP Maxová, welcome. We just started, so you didn't miss much. Just my brief introduction. Thank you for joining us.
I apologize because even before was longer than I assumed, so I am here for you.
Don't worry, all is good. We literally just begin. So please note, obviously, the speaker's views is their own. And we go straight to the first question, and by answering the first question, please also do a little introduction of yourself. We start with Dr. Modgil, Radha, as a campaigner for well-being in a period in which we're always connected and reading news and interacting with content on social media. Do you think that is increasingly common not to take the time to understand exactly how we are, and sometimes to disconnect and to recharge? How can that be related to mental health? Can you set the scene a bit on this?
Yes, of course. It's a delight to be here. Thank you very much. Lovely to be alongside so many interesting speakers as well. So yeah, I'm Dr. Radha Modgil. I'm a GP. I'm an NHS doctor in the UK, also a broadcaster and author, and I write a lot around mental health, emotional well-being, particularly for children and young people, but also very passionate around what health is and what well-being is in the round. So looking at that in a very holistic way, and obviously tying in life with our mental health. And social media obviously is a massive part of all of our lives. It's there to stay. Whether or not we like it or we want to be part of it, we kind of have to. But I'm very interested in how we can reframe social media as a positive, and how we can actually look at it and use it as a tool for our well-being. But I think you're right, Andrea. I think the world is moving so fast, the pace of change has been so fast, that actually, we very rarely, myself included, stop and think about how we're using social media, what we're using it for, and more importantly, how it's making us feel. So, you know, we are creatures of habit. Our brains like habits. And one of our habits is to pick up our phones or something else and just go straight on to social media without thinking about how we're feeling, what's going on for us emotionally, what's happening in our lives. And we just literally just scroll and look through without even really paying attention. Now, if you were to translate that social media interaction into real life interaction, then actually we would definitely be thinking about it, be much more aware of meeting all those people and talking to all those people and seeing all of those things if that was happening in real life, in everyday to day life. But because it's on a screen, we don't stop and think and pause. So I think a lot of it is around self-awareness. It's around really understanding the importance of our emotions and our thoughts, and taking a step back or trying to put in some steps before we reach for our phones, just to work out why we're using social media, why are we picking up our phones, why are we looking, how are we feeling, and importantly, how are we feeling after we've actually been exposed to social media? What is the change in our emotions and feelings? And then it's about working out really the strategies to sort of debrief after that and to look after ourselves in terms of how we manage that interaction, what we see, how it makes us feel, because thoughts, feelings lead to actions and behaviours. So it's about really putting in steps for that self-awareness, and then I suppose supporting all of us to have tools and tips and strategies around actually working out what we need in those moments when we find it a bit overwhelming. But importantly, also seeing the other side of it. You know, how can we use it for our mental health in a positive way? How can we use it to create and to express ourselves? How can we use it to connect to other people so we don't feel alone? And how can we use it, I suppose, to be more authentic and more who we are?
Thank you very much. That's I appreciate, you know, not just trying to see where is the threat, but also see what's the opportunity out there. We do have many of them on social media. Molly, moving to you, we would like to start by listening a bit more about your experience at large. No, I think you are definitely in your group a celebrity on social media, if I can say that, and an activist, and you do have people who know and listen to you and trust your advice. So can you tell us a bit about the community you built online, and then probably ask you something here.
Yes, of course. So I got involved in activism when I was like 16, so I'm 19 now. So it's been a good few years since I've been doing it. So around 3 years. And over the years I've took the opportunity to share my what I do online and on like my stories on Instagram, on like just posts and things like that, and post a lot about body positivity and certain things like that. But for me, I also do a lot of like interviews with different radio stations, things like that. It's just what I end up talking about. And from my experience, it has been like positive, but I've also experienced a lot of like negative effect, which I'm going to talk about for a second. So this summer, for example, I'm openly speak about how I'm gay and queer and like I identify as non-binary. And I did that with our big news channel here in Ireland, which is RTE News. But for me, it didn't get the best response. And within a day, I was receiving 10,000 messages saying how wrong I was for doing this and how my impact on people, how I'm impacting other people's lives by doing this, because I was speaking about our education system and how we need more queer sex education. And I had just took my platform and decided to do this. And I got in with the local news area and I decided together that we can make our voices heard. And I really didn't realize when I was going to do that the next day I was going to receive 10,000 messages from different people. And that is what I did. And yes, because the video got 1 million views. So that's the thing. You don't really know. In my life, I don't really know when I post something what it's going to be. Like sometimes it might get like 500 views, but then like something like this got like so much. So every day when you wake up, like for me, I don't know if I'm going to receive someone commenting something really positive on a post or something really negative. And then from that, I just learned a lot about like balance in my life, like that there's more to life than social media as well, and taking it off, because I love social media. I love being able to share things. I love being able to give people resources when they need it and things like that, and being able to share the work that I do. But also I understand that not always it's going to be easy for me every day. And it's just to learn to balance and try and like take the online world offline as well, and just try and realize that these people don't actually know who I am. They don't know me personally. They've seen like a 20-second clip of a video I've made and decides they can make a full assumption of who I am completely, which is completely ridiculous if you think about it. But yeah, no. So that's what I try and do. I try and balance off and online through just like looking at my reflecting and knowing that I know myself better than any of these people do. And at the end of the day, if I'm happy with what I'm doing and I'm happy who I am, then that's the main thing.
Thank you very much. That's very, very straight to the point and much appreciated. Veronica, with the rapid rise of the adoption of social media, we also have a group of or a set of research, examining what is the impact of social media and how this correlates to individuals and how they use it and the well-being of people, etc., etc. Do we have studies that show significant result or significant correlation or relationship between social media use and self-esteem and among young people, obviously?
Yeah, thanks for asking me this question. It's actually a very difficult one. I think that we've seen in the last decades a lot of interest in this area. So lots of researchers are starting to try to investigate and understand the relationships between how social media use can impact on our well-being and especially of young people. But it's complex because we see, for instance, that there are many factors that come into the equation. It's not just exposure to social media or social media engagement, but even within social media, it will depend a lot on what you do, how much time you spend on it, what you use it for, what kind of gratifications you might get from it, the type of what your behavior is like. For instance, if you are exposed to more risky behavior or which types of communities you're engaging with. So it's it's very complex because it's not just about I don't think we can just talk about like using social media and what its impact on mental health. And we do have a lot of research showing both sides of the coin, positive effects, more negative effects. But I think we really need to understand it with cautious. We need to be very cautious when we try to see this relationship. And in very general terms, what we do see is, for instance, there are some young people who have certain predispositions, for instance, to be more, to have some psychological problems. Maybe they have difficult family relationships or maybe difficulties in other aspects of their lives. And definitely some aspects related to personal vulnerability, social, socioeconomic vulnerability also play a key role in how you engage digitally, but also how you build your own life. So I think I would say there is research, and you might find research pointing in both positive and negative directions, positive and negative effects. But I think what is important and what's probably lacking is to have a deeper understanding, more longitudinal research. And longitudinal research is basically research that doesn't just look at like one specific moment, but actually that follows people throughout their lives. And so that we can better understand, for instance, what is the impact, maybe not just on a specific moment of your life, but through the years as you grow up, as you develop. So I do think that we are, I myself am currently involved in several projects dealing with this, and I think like we need to be very humble as researchers that there's lots of data, and it's also difficult to interpret what we are seeing and understanding what is the cause and what is actually what are the consequences of social media. Now there are some things like excessive use, or if you are, for instance, if you encounter certain types of content that might be that is, for instance, negative, or that can be very violent, or that can be aggressive, or racism, or xenophobia, or all types of this obviously will have a negative effect on the people who encounter it. But then again, it will depend on how old these people are, how resilient they are, what are their social networks. So even a young child, but who lives in a caring and loving environment, might be much better able to cope with it and be less harmed by the same type of content someone else who is living a more difficult personal situation might not necessarily have all the tools to cope with it. So I think we need to be very careful, but definitely there's a lot of research, and in the last decade, I mean, there's more and more interest.
Thank you very much, Veronica. That helps a lot to set the scene, and of course, talking about, we have different point of view. We have, the research side, let's say the activist one, and obviously the more approach to from a doctor point of view, and health related. It was important for us to have also someone representing the institution, and that's why we're very thankful to the MEP Maxová for being here. I would say the EU in the last 12 months, for the one who follow it has stepped up a lot when it comes to its digital policies and technological, or trying to achieve technological leadership, or try to get back among the best places in the world for that. However, when it comes to everything that it links to mental health, we are a bit slowing down or lagging behind, and there are a report like the 2022 Health at a Glance report that showed that almost 1 in 2 young people put mental health forward as one of their main concern, and we see it also in all the research we do, not just related to mental health. We whenever we speak about young people, this is definitely one of the topics that come up the most. I like to understand from you two things. At one side, what is the Parliament at the moment conversation on this, and what is the current trend, and if there is something on the other side that young people can do to support to accelerate a bit the interest of the European Parliament when it comes to this topic.
Thank you very much for your invitation and for raising this topic and crucial question. Mental health and young people are really the highest topic in European Parliament, and therefore I appreciate this dialogue on the pressing matter of mental health for our young Europeans. Particularly light of mentioned report, which highlights that about 50%, 48% of young people in Europe face unmet mental health needs. This underscores the need for a swift and effective response. In considering the influence of the online world on the lives of young people, we need to know, and it is essential to know, that over 70% of young Europeans experience stress and negative impacts from online activities. It is imperative to incorporate this issue into our plans and take prompt action. In this context, I believe that actively involving young people in decision-making is crucial. It is part of our politics, our politician decision, and so on. Online platforms and social media can be valuable for open discussion and sharing experiences. As we know, it is positive and also negative, with 90% of young Europeans actively sharing their stories online. So I think that sharing experiences and open discussion is really positive for young people and also for their mental health. In conclusion of this question, we must not only take immediate action as we talk, but also develop strategies that account for a changing digital landscape to be more friendly for young people and its impact on young people and for their mental health. It is also crucial to ensure that the internet becomes an environment beneficial to mental health and safe space, especially for children and adolescents. And simultaneously, we must safeguard user privacy. It is a really big discussion also in European Parliament. And this altogether demands our immediate and focused attention as we collaboratively work to create effective policies for the future of mental health in Europe and for the more safety internet and social media for our young people without any impact to their mental health.
Thank you very much. You were able to touch many important points in a very short time, which is very rare for a politician. So we appreciate that a lot. It's definitely very good. If we go a bit deeper into the topic, and we, you know, based on what Molly was mentioning, activism and the importance to equip users, no, I'd like to go to Dr. Modgil and ask. You often participate, you know, in online education courses, and you often, you know, share knowledge online, I would say, you know. And are there key crucial messages or lessons that you think it's important to convey to young people, so that we can provide them with the knowledge, with the tools, so that they can navigate the internet safely, more specifically, behave on social media in a way, and not just behave, but also experience social media in a way that it's, let's say, empowering their well-being? And are there key messages that you'd like to share? That I think it could be very interesting for us to see what advices you have in that respect.
Yeah, thank you. So I think it's helpful, although online is obviously online and it's not in a physical environment, it's not kind of face to face, it's not as we would normally experience it before the internet. I do think it's helpful to think about the similarities between online activity and the kind of activity we would normally have day to day. And let's take the example of bullying as just a very simple example of that. So I think it's helpful to think about the online situation in relation to how we, I suppose, empower young people with the strategies, and compare that to if it was happening in a physical environment, in the school playground, for example. So normally, you know, after that would have happened in a school playground, that young person, or the support we'd be giving that young person, would be about debriefing. It would be about sitting down, allowing them to feel that they can trust whoever they're talking to open up about that, to tell that person what's happened to them, to tell them how they felt from that, and then to ask that person for their help and support in how to navigate the processes to reduce that, to stop it, and to avoid harm from it. So I think it's really helpful to think about those same themes and translate those into the social media environment. So what we need to be doing is we need to be basically supporting young people with the tools, I think, on 3 levels. So the first is we need to allow them to have the skills and understanding, and also develop the systems, the platforms, the policies, quite rightly, to allow them to be safe. So safety is the foundation stone of all of this. If you think about it as a pyramid, if you think about Maslow's pyramid, in terms of what well-being is, we can use the same kind of idea. That sort of online safety is the foundation part that absolutely is essential and needs to be there. Hopefully it should have been there right from the beginning, but the internet exploded so fast that we didn't have time to necessarily do that. But that safety needs to be there. So young people, we need to support them with the tools to stay safe online. So for example, what platforms are they using? What age is recommended for them? How can they report things if they come across something which is distressing or they don't feel safe? And that's either sort of physically, mentally, or emotionally. How can they get in touch with that platform, for example? How can they basically stay safe in that online environment? So that's the first level that we need to be talking about, empowering them with the skills, the strategy, the knowledge about the different platforms and about how to report things, who they can confide in. And on the converse of that, this is not just down to the young people and the platforms and the policymakers, it's also down to the people around them in their day-to-day lives. So friends, their peers, parents, carers, teachers, every person in that kind of role that young person will come across in their day-to-day life. We need to be informing them about how to talk about these issues. We need to be informing them so they feel confident and they feel safe to talk about what to do if a young person comes to them with a safety issue online. So this is a very circular thing. It's not just 1 or 2 people being responsible. It needs to be joined up, and we need to be developing resources for all of those different groups of people who young people are in touch with or interact with. The second layer after safety, I think, is around behaviour and around kind of helping young people navigate the internet, using respectful behaviour, respectful language, increasing and improving tolerance, for example. all those kind of things on a day-to-day basis, how we would interact with someone else that we would come face to face with, we would know and we would do. So it's about, going back to very sort of what we might think as basic concepts, but these are concepts with science behind them. So going back to kindness, empathy, values, understanding, tolerance, all of those things which end up allowing us basically to interact with individuals in a healthy way day to day. And I think some of these things like kindness and tolerance and acceptance and empathy, they're sometimes framed as things for primary school children or soft skills or concepts that aren't really that important. They are strategies for our well-being. All of those things have science behind them. All those things, when we actually practice those and we take those into action, can actually help us stay well mentally, emotionally, physically, but also come together as a society, come together as a community and stay well and stay cohesive. So that's the second layer. And then the third layer, which these should not necessarily be in order, but hopefully in parallel, is around, I think, empowering young people with the skills to enjoy and to flourish and to thrive online. So talking to them about the benefits, scientific benefits to their health and well-being, of creativity, of imagination, of self-expression, of being who they are, of authenticity. So these are all the things which shouldn't be sort of third in line. They should be there in parallel. But these are things which actually we know that joy and creativity and all of these things like hobbies and learning new skills, building confidence, building self-esteem, all of those things add to our health and well-being. So that's how I would see those sort of three layers of what we need to do. And like I said, alongside those, it's about getting those skills and helping young people, I suppose, understand what that means and how to deal with those things. But as I said before, not just to young people, we need to be doing it for everyone in different contexts. And I think a lot of the time, parents, carers, teachers, sometimes policymakers, I think sometimes they feel like they don't really understand the platforms. They don't really know what's going on in them. And that's understandable. They're a different generation. They haven't necessarily grown up with that. And I think that lack of knowledge and I suppose that lack of confidence, I think actually is one of the major obstacles or the major things we have to get over in order to help them. If you ask a parent or a carer or a teacher, would you like to support your young person with their mental health online, they'd say absolutely 100%, please tell me what to do. I think we just haven't been very good as a society in actually making those resources, those platforms seem accessible and allow, I think, the adults or the older people in their lives to feel confident enough to actually broach that subject. And when we're frightened of something or we don't know about something, we tend to avoid it. So that's also what we need to be doing. We need to be targeting all of those people and improving their confidence in how to use the internet as well and how to broach these conversations with young people in their lives.
Thank you very much. That was nice and well structured. If I can take the tip of a pyramid, no, and when you talk about enjoying and flourishing, I think Molly, you're definitely someone who's someone follow a bit. You're flourishing on social media, and I mean it's clear that that you're having an impact. And I like to understand a bit more two things. One, if you can give us a concrete example on how social media made it possible for you to have an impact, so that gives you a sense of achieving a purpose and doing something good for others and linking with others. I think that's also important when you flourish. How others see with you. It's clear that you are part of several networks of young people that are trying to have a positive impact and change things. I'd like to understand a bit, how does this help? How does this sense of community that you create with others that helps you in your journey?
For me, like without social media, I literally wouldn't be sitting here today. So it has done a lot for me, and like it helps me so much. Like a lot of my friends I have met through like working on online Zooms together and like doing different projects together. And I've like been reached out to so many people. Like I have an interview next week with like a newspaper, literally saw my social media and contacted me through that. Like without that, I wouldn't have got all these opportunities and I wouldn't have got to meet some of the most amazing people that I have met. So it has given me like the opportunity to just become like this person that I wanted to become from the start and like be myself and like help me. Like it's a tool that helps me find my voice. Without it, I wouldn't have had my voice because I found it through online. My first ever event I did was around online safety, and it was online through COVID, and it was the Safer Internet Forum. And without internet and without social media, I literally wouldn't have been able to do that because I wouldn't have even known about it. I applied for my first ever program with Webwise, which is the Internet Safer Internet Forum in Ireland, through an online application that I saw on Instagram. Literally, for me, social media started everything for me, and without it, I wouldn't have had anything. And I know for a lot of people, it helps them so much because I grew up in a place that is a lot more smaller than other places in Ireland, and very much so rural Ireland, and wouldn't always be the most progressive place. And I know a lot of people in my area that were like me, found and had most of their friends from other places in Ireland, but the only way that they were able to keep in contact with them was through online. So their people were online, even though that they couldn't see them every day. They had these strong connections with them, and without that, they wouldn't have had these people that they could connect with, and they wouldn't have felt welcomed as much because not everyone makes their friends in school. And I think that's the thing that people don't seem to realize. Not everyone makes their friends in the place that they grow up. Some people make them as they go on in life and in their journeys. And we might not always be in the same room together, but I have these people online, which helps me a lot. So that's kind of that would be my gist of how social media has helped me so much.
Thank you very much. And I mean, I think it could come through the message to everyone on how, personal you take this. And I think that's also what then has an impact on others, when they see the personal story and everything that you put through whatever channel, whether it's in a room, in presence or virtual. And linking to this, Veronica, what just Molly just said, what would you give as an advice to other activists, to have an impact on the online space and on the online audience to engage in a meaningful way so that they can really do something positive? And maybe on what Radha was saying before on the research, what do you think is out there that has not been addressed yet? You were telling, there were many research in your previous answer, and that they showed both sides of the coin. Is there something that you think we're still missing, any piece of the puzzle that we still should feel?
Yeah, thank you, Andrea, for both your questions. And Molly, well, actually, as part of my research, I remember that I worked with Molly on one of the projects, and she was one of the participants in my research, and it was during COVID. And so definitely, we have lots of opportunities through social media. Digital technologies also give us that possibility to connect. And I think people like Molly and people, young people who have a voice, who also have an online space, they also have a big responsibility ahead. They also have the chance to provide safe spaces, positive online opportunities, also educate, and also provide a space for young people to be heard. And I think that's very important. I think that we need to provide more of these channels where people, also those facing difficult situations, can also have find a space where they can share difficulties, also happy moments, questions they might have with peers. And why is it so important? In research, unfortunately, still tells us that when young people face difficulties, and certainly online, they do not talk so often as we wished with adults. They do not talk so often with their parents, and they do not talk so often with their teachers. In the first place, they go to friends or to other peers they can trust. So I think because of the power of peer interactions, peer support networks, I think that young people online, they can offer definitely space for meaningful communication. I think there are practical things that also they can do, and or maybe even try to minimize or avoid. I mean, we know, for instance, that for teenagers, for young people, body image is so important, and we are like bombarded with unrealistic body images. So I think one very practical thing they can do, try to avoid these unrealistic body images. I mean, they can also try to be more natural, be themselves, discourage unhealthy comparisons with others. I mean, comparing yourself to others, and it's fine, but there are ways of comparing which are healthier than others. So it's also, I think, important not to promote unhealthy behavior. And it's also very important that these people, because they do have a responsibility, that they also uh, also try to educate themselves in and better understand what impact they can have, and what positive impact they can have on others, and exploit also that part. Many times I think we have these young influencers who have lots of followers because they are fun, and that's great. But they could also, apart from being fun, they could also add other aspects to their engagement with young people. I could also be positive role models. So I think we also have, as adults, that responsibility also to help them to become positive role models. And we have many young influencers, sometimes showing challenges online, and very young people trying to follow them, imitate their behavior, what they do, things that, yeah, sometimes it might be very innocent, but sometimes it might end up also in risky behavior. So, and many times, because they are young, they might not necessarily understand what their impact is. So I do think that they have a responsibility, but I also think that we as adults have a responsibility also, maybe to provide more spaces like this one, where young influencers can also be more aware of how they can impact others, and especially more positively. So that would be my advice in that area. In terms of research,
Veronica, if I can, sorry, just
yeah.
I hate to do this, but Molly has to leave us, I believe,
Yeah.
now. Molly, I don't know if there is a last message you want to share later. We're stepping into, policies, and now we can improve policies. You have been involved in several of them. Is there anything a message you want to leave us when it comes to that?
Yes, of course. Like when it comes to policies, main thing I can say is get young people involved. Like I don't know if you all, I presume some of you've heard of the Better Internet for Kids strategy. I was lucky enough to have a big input in that, and I was on the advisory board for it. And like that just helps so many people, because if you're going to make policies for young people need to be in it. And that is genuinely my main bit of advice I could give. I am so sorry that I can't stay on. I really would absolutely love to. In that room behind you, I'm meant to be on stage in 3 minutes giving another talk, so I have to
Go
run.
for it. Don't worry.
Thank you so much. Take
Thank you.
care.
Thank you
I
very
will see
much,
you on the
Molly.
next one. Thank you,
Definitely,
guys.
yes. I
And
take
if you
you.
have,
Yeah.
sorry, if you have any questions, feel free to just like message me, reach out. I will of course reply. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. And I take the opportunity just to say that Molly is part of a youth network that we are building together with Meta, where we try to have creators and influencers bring a positive message for a safer and better internet. So definitely, that's thank you very much again for joining us, and good
Thank
luck with
you
the
for having
speech.
me. Thank you.
Ciao. Veronica, sorry, going back to your point, there was the second part of the question which you were about to answer, and it was about which kind of part of the research work are still uncovered, which are the part of the puzzle that you think we should, or someone should start looking at and focusing on.
Well, yeah, I feel, yeah, although there's lots of research, I think there's not that much actually on positive impact of, for instance, digital technologies on well-being. I think there's been much more research about online risks, for instance, and on opportunities, but on specific aspects of well-being and the impact. I think there we can definitely do better. Um, Also, to better understand what what are the factors that influence, and that could actually have the could influence young people on coping, also of knowing to cope, on becoming more resilient, because we know some people are more resilient than others, and that means that they are better able to cope with adversity, and certainly online. But I don't think we understand very well what are the factors that are helping those people to be in that position, and how we can then, learning from research like that, we could also use those findings to help younger people try to develop, or help them develop, those qualities that would help them become more resilient online. And I also think that it's important, as I said before, more it's not just the type of research, but we also need to understand different types of platforms and different types of activities. I mean, it's still, when we talk about social media, it's very different when someone is using TikTok, or someone using Instagram, or someone might be blogging or vlogging or doing actual activism online. So I think we still need much more knowledge about like specific uses of technology, and how specific uses can contribute to specific aspects of well-being. And I think there it's important, because now we talk about social media, but actually we know little. We don't know if it's people who are doing work like Molly, actually, that they are maybe having like positive gratifications, and they're improving their mental well-being. So then we say, well, social media is bad for young people and it causes problems, but we might find out that for some people it's also a way of connecting with others, of finding distractions, or becoming less distressed, of relaxing. So I think we need to understand like better what types of uses, in which contexts they have what type of impact on our well-being. And I think that would help us better to give better recommendations. Right now, I feel always uncertain when people ask me. I feel like, well, I'm a researcher, but actually, I don't think I still have enough knowledge to provide advice and tell people, well, no, tell your young children to use less TikTok. More, I don't know what they are doing online. So it's not just about use a platform or don't use it. It's what are you doing on that platform that, and you might be maybe using TikTok for something very positive, and you might be helping yourself and other kids. So I think we really need to be careful, understand the context better, context of use.
Thank you very much. I think that definitely give a nice perspective on a larger spectrum of what we usually speak. Going back to MEP Maxová, there is one, I mean, Molly just mentioned it, the Better Internet for Kids initiative, if I can call it like that. That it's something that in Brussels, it's now, when I say Brussels, of course, I mean European Commission, Parliament, Council, and all the European institutions. This Better Internet for Kids is a very much debated topic, and actually it's something, it's a work that all different European institutions are putting together to adopt strategies on national level then, so that we can improve the safety of children and young people online, make sure they're protected, they're respected, what Radha was saying before, the pyramid, etc., etc. If you can tell us a couple of words about it, but more especially, I think what is interesting is what we're trying also to have today. So to have different actors around this initiative, and how can expert, activists, young people, parents, industry platforms as well, NGOs, etc., participate in such initiative. I think that would be really helpful for people who are listening to us to be involved and understand that what's going on in Brussels on this topic, which is a very, very important one.
Yeah, thank you for your question. We here in the European Parliament are working on this framework, as you said, and legislative framework is being prepared to strengthen safety measures and regulate content suitable for young users. We use numbers according to research. According to recent research involving 10,000 children age 9 to 16 in Europe, 65% of them experience some from the online harassment during the internet interaction. This underscores the urgency of our effort in this area. According to recent statistics, 82% of young people age 12 to 15 use the internet every day. This level of engagement highlights the importance of collaborating with the industry to create effective strategies to protect children online. We also focus on collaborating with law enforcement agencies to better prosecute illegal activities online may endanger children. According to recent Europol data, the number of cases related to online child abuse has increased by 27% compared to the previous years, underscoring the urgency of our adjustment. Finally, we value the participation of academic and cyber psychology experts. According to a recent study published in Journal of Abnormal Psychology, the prevalence of anxiety and depressive disorders in young people has increased by 70% over the last 25 years. This underscores the need to leverage the knowledge of experts in creating effective strategies for better internet for children. And however, it is essential to emphasize that while protecting children and young people in the online environment, the European Parliament must maintain a balance and also protect the privacy rights of users. Finding the right balance between safety and privacy is our priority, not so easy, to create an environment that is safe, respect privacy, and is user-friendly. So we are working together with all stakeholders, and if someone of them want to discuss his view on this problem, it's not problem. You can choose one or group of MEPs and you can try to negotiate what is your view or not on this topic. We are really open to discuss each side of this topic.
Thank you very much. I think it helps everyone to understand a bit that, the European Parliament and the Commission are taking the topic seriously and definitely looking at the different experts to be involved. And on the topic of involvement, Radha, we do have nowadays many features and many ways to understand people's opinion by looking at social media, by analyzing social media comments, and I mean that there is huge literature on this, and many ways in which people who take decision look at social media to understand a bit what the online world, which is becoming more and more spread to being the actual entire world, wants, expect, and think. Can you give us example of policies and again that were taken or were seen where actually this aspect of this looking at what was going on social media helped to shape some policies and understand citizen opinion and how they were expressing their views online?
Yes, of course. So just from my experience in the UK and in my broadcasting work, I do a lot around, I meet a lot of activists and campaigners who are doing all kinds of amazing, very positive things to change policy and change law and make a difference. I think that some of the ones that I've come across where something has started online and there's been a whole collaborative people and a whole movement around that where it's actually made an impact and been effective is partly due to the tampon tax that we had in the UK. So tax on period products that was started online. There's a big momentum around that, big collaboration, lots of noise, lots of comments around abolishing that, and that's actually gone through the UK Parliament, so that's actually been successful. Another case was a lady that I met who actually started a campaign around upskirting to get that put into the UK law, which has been successful. So there have been lots and lots lots of different examples of how something has started online or on a social media platform. People have commented, people have got behind that campaign, and things have actually changed, and they've changed in law, they've changed in policy for the better. And I think that's also another aspect, I suppose. I think at the moment, in my experience of broadcasting with young people, in all my different roles that I do, I think the one thing that young people feel very, very much at the moment is that they don't have a voice. The world is very challenging at the moment. There's a lot of challenges for young people around their futures, around job prospects, around housing. They've also been through a lot of immense challenges during the pandemic and COVID in terms of their mental
I think we're having
health.
some...
The school age, there's lots and lots of things if you're young about and very anxious about. So I think sometimes young people at the moment can feel very powerless, and they feel that their voice isn't being heard, like what they're saying, what they're doing doesn't make a difference. And we know that if that goes on for a long time, we get what we call learned hopelessness. So we then can lead to all kinds of mental health challenges. So I think the one thing around social media, which we can harness and we can use if we get it right, and if we put all the other checks and balances in place that we've mentioned, is we can actually use social media as a place where young people can have their voices heard, and they can actually feel like it's a place where they can actually make things change, and they can change things for the better. And again, that and having purpose in our lives and a sense of, when we do something, a sense of actually it's going to make a difference, that has huge benefits for our mental well-being and our emotional well-being. So there is a space for that, but we need to get it right. As all the other panelists have said, we need to make sure that that's regulated, that's in a space where people feel safe to comment, where we're regulating people who potentially are being unkind, nasty, abusive, for example, about people expressing their opinions. We need to almost create that environment so that young people can feel like they have a voice, and they can feel like what they do actually can make something change for the better.
Thank you very much. As we are getting close to the end, and I would like to still leave some space for the... Oh, sorry, Radha, I probably interrupted you, but the connection...
No, I think the connection just dropped out, but I'm okay, I've finished. Don't worry, Andrea. Thank you. No,
I just wanted to say, I still want to leave a couple of questions from the Q&A. Before going into that, just the last question, both from VMEP and from Verónica. To VMEP, somehow the same thing. Have you had any experience in which you were looking, you or your colleagues or policymakers were looking at how was going on online to then, understand a bit what was citizen opinion and then shape policies, etc., etc.?
Andrea, I'm sorry. I didn't hear the question. Was it addressed to Radka?
No, that was addressed to Radka, yes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Radka, sorry. I was asking whether you did have the experience to, look at what citizens were commenting on social media somehow, understand a bit what was their opinion there, and then trying to use this to inform better policies and create better understanding as well with citizens and hearing them.
Yes. Sometimes it is nice, and sometimes it is worse. Read some comments online on social media concerning your work and so on. But the emergence of social media platform has indeed facilitated the capture citizens' reaction and option on public policy or schemes. However, the extent to which these opinions directly contribute to policy design can vary. One notable example where social media played a significant role in influencing and informing policy is all around the world Me Too movement. This movement gained momentum on social media platforms, particularly Twitter in 2017. It provided a platform for survivors of sexual harassment and assault to share their experience, creating a powerful and widespread conversation around this issue. This is really topic for European Parliament, violence against women and so on. This collective voice of survivors on social media had a profound impact on public awareness and discourse. On a global scale, the Me Too movement led to a redefinition of sexual violence by exposing the prevalence of such incident and challenging social norms and structure that perpetuate harassment and assault. As a result, policymakers and institutions worldwide were compelled to address the issue more seriously. And this is, I think, role of social media, this way. If you see something bad, you should have action and try to involve more people for some change in society, in law, and so on. On the other hand, social networks have probably influenced some politicians by spreading hoaxes or the hateful messages, as we could see in during COVID crisis and Ukraine war and so on. And these messages we could have seen during also migration crisis and so on, and which is something that should be addressed, and we should be really careful to join this message. We should educate a lot of people how we should negotiate or behavior with this messages, hoax and fake news, hate speech. Hate speech is now really a lot spread on social media.
Thank you, Amity Maxová. Verónica, if I can, based on that and what the MEP was saying on the different rules and etc. Do you think that there are regulations from governments that would help promote a healthy balance? And I mean, when I talk about regulation, I mean regulation of the algorithm somehow. If it's in your experience something that it's something that can be addressed like that.
Well, it's a complicated question, actually. I do think that there are currently in Europe, at least, some initiatives for instance, the DSA, Digital Services Act. They put lots of measures specifically, mainly for very big companies, digital companies, but also for other players in the digital market to better protect users online, to better protect our privacy, also in better protect children, paying more attention to children's rights, protect children's right in terms of, for instance, access to information, having enough access to freedom of expression. Then I think also to restrict things like marketing, targeting children, so I do think that regulation is definitely necessary, but it's not just what type of regulation, but it's how meaningful that regulation is to me. I think that's the most important thing. So you can have regulation, but the regulation needs to be thought together with the people it's going to affect, in my opinion. So I don't think that there is point in having lots of regulation that doesn't consider how young people, how children are going to be affected. So I think first, to me, most important is why are politicians, why are lawmakers, why are regulators deciding, and how are they deciding what is important to protect children online? What are they considering as most important? So consulting with the people who are affected, consulting with the people who are involved, to me, is actually probably as important as the regulation itself. Then if that regulation is co-created with the people, then the next step is how is that regulation implemented, because many times we have regulation and we see across Europe that there is lots of freedom for every country to implement the regulations. And in some countries, we see that the implementation goes well, in others not so well. Some countries comply with it, some others not. So I think it's also very important to establish clear mechanisms for the countries also to understand what they have to comply with and how to regulate. Many times, I think what we are lacking is actually that guidance also. So also, what are the consequences? Okay, that's a regulation that will happen, and many times there is very little follow-up. So there is regulation there, but nothing has happened. I mean, we know in many countries, for instance, aspects such as cyberbullying might be considered illegal and might have legal consequences, but people do not even know that that's possible in some countries. So, and sometimes even if it's possible, someone might go up and step to the police, and the police might think, well, we have other bigger problems that much more important than the case of cyberbullying. So even the police might not necessarily react in the right way. So to me, more than what is regulating, I think it's very important how we regulate, why we regulate, and involve the people. I mean, and by people, I mean the ones who are going to be affected. But when I say also the law enforcement is also very important, they also need to understand why certain regulation is important, why they need also to take some things more seriously. So it's not just educating parents, it's not just educating children. It's also, you have a piece of regulation, and I think we also need to bring it to the people and educate everybody that has to work with that regulation and how we implement it. And I think probably we are failing a lot at that, at educating about the regulation, educating about what our rights as citizens are, but also what our duties are, and why, for instance, there are certain things that we shouldn't do simply online, because I mean, you could get into trouble, and many times children do not know that. So I think there's a lot of yeah, I mean, and I'm sorry if I'm not more specific about your question, because I'm not really a legal expert, but I do feel those are aspects that maybe regulators could take into consideration when they develop laws. And I don't know if Radka agrees with me, but yeah, I think those are also important aspects.
Thank you. We are a couple of minutes late, but I still would like to put in 2 or 3 questions, if you allow me, from the people who are listening to us. So if our team can, okay, this is Marius Loka, who's watching us on Facebook. Academic courses and in general content in these topics are very timely election to do. Thank you. Are you aware if institutions are planning to incorporate more education programs that talk about these topics? That's a very, I wouldn't probably much be able, I don't know if someone of you is aware whether the institution I believe is talking about European institution, but can also be national one, are planning to incorporate more education topic on mental health and mental well-being online and this related to social media. It is obviously a topic that is much debated, but for sure, I mean, today's webinar and the work we've been doing so far with our Feed Our Future campaign, I think it talks a lot about it, and there will be, at least from our side and from ThinkYoung side, more of webinars, but also in-presence conference to which, if you are based in Brussels, you can come and attend. But actually, I don't know if institutions are planning something. I'm looking at the other speakers, if you are aware of anything coming directly from the institution.
I can say that we have in the European Parliament a lot of events concerning mental health, young people, children, elderly people, mental health education, and we push European Commission to set up comprehensive approach concerning mental health, and there is also push for more money for education in university and more webinar and seminar, but it is at the beginning, and we would like to have strategy concerning mental health for European Union, and also we are pushing European Commission to set up a European Mental Health Year which would be great for more money for education, different action in different countries in whole Europe. But now we don't have any message if European Mental Health Year will be the next or the other after the next year. So we try to do more for have more money for more education concerning mental health.
That would be a fantastic thing. And so we definitely side and support that. Radka, please. Radha, sorry.
Yes, I was just going to add that in my experience, so I'm thinking about sort of schools, colleges, educational institutions. In my experience, we tend to only kind of have resources or involve this kind of topic in education only when it comes to things like bullying and or safety. So we only tend to have resources, in my experience, or people coming in to talk about that or weaving that into some of the curriculums only, unfortunately, at the sort of crisis points. I'm not aware, and I think actually it would be an amazing thing to do, would be to develop a whole program where we're not just looking at bullying and safety and all those kind of crisis points, but we're actually, as I said before, kind of working up to the second level of that pyramid and the third level of that pyramid. So we're giving a completely comprehensive resource that could be used on all of those levels, not just, unfortunately, although it's necessary and it's important, not just focusing on those sort of crisis elements and the very, very sort of extreme situations, which is where we don't want to be in the first place. I think we need to incorporate a resource and develop a resource that actually involves the whole gamut of how to be online, and so that actually we're balancing things, but also by doing that frequently, we're actually giving a message to young people, to children, to teachers, carers and parents that actually this is really important, because when something is only covered on one day of the year, when it's anti-bullying week or internet safety day once a year, the message is this is not that important. It needs to be repeated frequently and to be very comprehensive in what it's showing for actually all of us to realise just how important this is. And as obviously the other two panellists quite rightly said, the impact that it has on young people and children in terms of their mental health as well.
Thank you very much. If we can take another one, I'd say that's probably the last one, given the time. While the government grapples with regulation, parents can step in. That's a very, very fair point. What can be done in key areas, including parents' internet use and screen time, as well as parental and educator support? I don't know if this one, Verónica, you could probably jump in, but also Radha, very, very curious to know both of your point of view.
Yeah, well, I think there's lots to be done. Maybe interesting to mention that from research, what we see is that different parents have different styles, different parenting styles, definitely also online, and we do see important differences in how these parenting styles affect the ways children acquire digital skills, but also how they cope with potential online risks. So, for instance, we see that parents who are very restrictive, parents who set lots of rules, I would say excessive rules of don't let children be online. They put lots of, we see there that children have less opportunities to develop their digital skills, and also they also have less ability and less opportunities to develop the necessary abilities to cope, for instance, with difficult online situations. We also see that parents who accompany their children more, parents who establish good channels of communication, who are less restrictive but more communicative and more open in their communication with children. We also see that those children tend to have better digital skills, but also better coping strategies when they deal with difficult situations. So what I'm saying is that independent of the type of parent you are, I think it's very important that you really try to get engaged in what your children do online, obviously respecting their different developmental ages. If they're very young, you need to be much more involved and be using devices with them, like maybe playing games together, see what they are doing. If they are older, they need more privacy. But it's very important that when you set up rules, that you talk to your children, that you make family agreements, that you try also to be informed as a parents about what can go wrong and how you can step in if something goes wrong, and not just take measures such as, okay, you did something wrong, now I'm going to take off, you don't have access to internet at home and you cannot use a mobile phone, because measures like these are exactly what makes young children then not trust adults. They should trust, and they might actually get into trouble, and they might not let you know. So I think that communication is very important. Also, depending on the age of the child, restricting screen time. But the younger they are, the less screen time in general they should be exposed to. But obviously, again, it depends on your family context. But for instance, imagine some years ago, the pediatrics association recommended that children younger than 2 should not be exposed at all to screens, which sounds sensible. But what if you're an expat? What if you're an immigrant? What if you have a child and you want your children to be connected with their grandparents? The only way to do it is through screens. So we also need to always think about, okay, what am I using that technology for? And if your child, even if it's a baby, is connecting with their grandparents or playing games online with grandparents who live abroad, that might actually be a positive use of technology. So I don't think we need to see it all white or black. It is about a context. And for me, the most important is parents try to be open, try not to panic, try to get informed so that you can actually guide your children rather than restrict what they do online. Guide them, educate them, and there are opportunities. I mean, unfortunately, not in all countries, but there are online courses, there are lots of materials, and I'm trying to share some with you so that maybe Andrea, or you can maybe share them with the audience later.
Absolutely, we will, and thank you very much, because there are, I see in the private chat we have many links you're putting, so we'll make sure to share that with our audience. If I can, I mean, we are 11 minutes longer, but definitely the topic was super interesting. I think the last point, Verónica, you were mentioning on parents could be potentially topic for another either webinar or conference we do, because I'm sure there is a lot of demand for that from parents. One final tour, if you would have a very last message on young people, on mental health and online, and how social media can help, starting from Radha and then Radka and Verónica, and then we close. Thank you very much.
So I think my main message would be is to try and think about the similarities between online and what would happen in real life, and try to have the same themes when you're supporting a young person. Those sort of themes are open communication, time and space to debrief, supporting them with the knowledge and skills they need to do it, but also making sure that if you're that person, a young person's life, that you're also arming yourself with that support and that knowledge, and also you're practicing what you preach. So I would say, think about the themes. Social media is not so alien. The themes are not so different. We can kind of almost use some of our common sense and what we know to be right in terms of human interaction and what keeps us well to support young people online.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your invitation. And my message, very short, I think that social medias are part of our life now. It is without any discussion. But real life is real life. And if you can share your positive and negative experience and discuss about this impact on you. And if you have any question, you ask experts, different people how deal with this.
Thank you. Verónica?
Yeah, thank you also for the invitation and for the questions from the audience. I think my main recommendation is also, as both of you have said before, it's really like whatever happens to you online, it's going to have an impact on how you feel, on who you are, and how. So there's a lot of common sense here, and also ask for help. So whenever you face something difficult, even if you feel like really isolated, if you're going through a very difficult situation, there are still organizations, there are associations, there are safer internet centers in every member state. There are helplines that can help you. If you see something wrong or something that bothers you, you can also report it to hotline. So I think it's very important that you also help yourself, that you help others, that you take action. So really for the negative things, and for the positive things, please share them. I mean, you can, if you are someone who can have influence on others and a positive influence, yeah, please do. And if that space is online, use it. I mean, really, I think we need to promote more positive uses online, because as Radka said, yeah, social media are here to stay. We have artificial intelligence. I mean, many things will evolve, and I think a lot depends on how we use technology to make it something positive for us and for others. So yeah, use your space and use the technologies in ways that can help you and us.
Thank you very much. First of all, a big thank to the three of you and Molly who had to leave, and to obviously the whole team who was working in the background to make this happen. Final announcement, this very webinar and the future one coming together with many other resources can be found on the Our Feed, Our Future campaign website, which is the ThinkYoung website, thinkyoung.eu/Our Feed, Our Future. So there you will find also the links that we were talking previously, both for parents and for young people, together with this webinar and other resources that we've been working on and we will produce in the future. Big thanks to all the speakers for taking the time, especially taking 15 minutes longer of your time, which I know is extremely precious. That's much appreciated. And stay tuned, because there will be more things coming. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. You're welcome.